Should you take career advice from billionaires? On one hand, they're billionaires and they probably know what they're talking about. But on the other hand, they may be very disconnected. And in this case, I think it's a little bit of both. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Brian, the founder of A Life After Layoff, and I'm a career strategist with a background in corporate recruiting and human resources. And I made it my mission to demystify how careers and job search work at major corporations. And so if this kind of content interests you, make sure you hit that subscribe button. So I found it really fascinating. You got these two billionaires, Michael Bloomberg, Warren Buffett, who are giving advice on how people should start their careers and how they started their careers specifically. And Michael Bloomberg was actually on a podcast recently talking about how he got started in finance on his path to becoming a billionaire. Let's listen to it and see if it's even relevant to what's going on in today's market.
I asked a friend of mine, Steve Fenster, who's a very smart guy, since unfortunately died of cancer. And Steve, I said, what should I do? He said, go to Wall Street. I said, where is that? What do they do? He said, just do it. I said, who do I call? He said, call Solomon Brothers and Goldman Sachs. I said, what's that? Who are they? Just do it. So I called both. One sent me down with an airplane ticket. One sent me down with a train ticket from Boston to New York. And both of them made me an offer. One offered $14,000 a year, the other $9,000 a year. I liked the people at the $9,000 one better, just who I happened to meet that day. And I said to the head guy, look, here's my budget, $5 for Subway and newspapers and food, $125 for rent every month. I can't afford to go to work for you for $9,000. I said, how much do you need, kid? And I did the math quickly and I split the difference. I said, 11.5. And he said, fine, $9,000 salary, $2,500 loan. And he got up and he walked out of the room. And I didn't know if I had a job or not. But I assumed I did, but I'll never forget that. People make the mistakes of
Before he gets into what the mistake is, I wanted to point out his strategy for getting a job back. Now, this is probably in the 60s when he got his first job on Wall Street. And keep in mind, he did go to Ivy League. I think he got an MBA. He got like John Hopkins, I think was where he got his bachelor's degree. And then he got an MBA from Harvard. So I'm assuming that that's what opened the doors for him going into these investment banking firms. They typically go after Ivy League and they pay him these huge salaries. His strategy for getting a job was to call up a friend, basically just head into the office and ask for a job. And this is why there's this like kind of like typical boomer type of advice where just walk into the office, ask for the personnel department, give them a firm shake in the hand and just tell them you need a job. And that's how people literally got jobs back then. So in his case, he walked into these investment firms. I don't know what the interview process is, but he walked into these investment firms, got these interviews with two very reputable companies, ended up getting an offer. Now he says 9,000, he had negotiated up to 11,000. You have to keep in mind that number in today's economy, like accounting for inflation, you're looking at over $100,000 a year starting. So I guess if you went to Harvard, got an MBA, you probably would expect that kind. But this is a good job to start with. So he's walking in doing this advice that realistically you're not going to be able to walk into an employer, walk into Midtown Manhattan and demand to see the human resource department and say you need a job and they're going to hire you on the spot. That just does not work that way anymore. So this portion of it is certainly out of touch, but that's how things worked back then.
Going to work for a place where they get paid the most. And that's not, particularly when you're young, that's not what life's about. You've got to get experience. You've got to build friendships. You've got to try things and see what works and what doesn't. And all these young people just looking at the wrong thing. What is my position? What am I going to be called? Do I have a title or what? When you're 25 years old and you're getting out of school, not where you should focus.
No. So essentially what he's saying is he turned down a higher offer with another company to take the lower job offer because he liked the people. And on some level, I think that's actually not bad advice. You should be focusing on getting the best quality experience with the most reputable brand name that you can on your resume as early into your career as possible. If you're trying to go somewhere in your career, if you're trying to have strong upward mobility, I would be highly focused on trying to get the best quality name on my resume as early as I can, even if it means a few $1,000s less. If it's a significant chunk, you really have to think long and hard about that. But getting that name will open up doors for you later on, especially in certain industries like the finance industry, where name and pedigree really mean a lot more than in some other industries. And listen, I know that people don't like this advice, but it is relevant whether you like it or you don't. People who chase job hopping, they do it early in their career. You have to do it very strategically to move up in salary bands quickly, because there is an entry level salary band that you kind of move around in. Some companies will start you lower on the band, so there's more wiggle room to move in that band. And there's not necessarily like a band that all these companies share with one another, but there's a relative market for an entry level job type. And you want to try to move through those levels as quickly as you can because you get paid more, right? So that's why people have successfully early in their career been able to hop from job to job to job and move up in salary relatively quickly, big chunks too. But once you hit the top end of that band and you're no longer considered entry level or even like early career, now you are trying to move into a whole different level. So unless you get a company who is willing to move you into that level without the experience to back it up, you're going to end up hitting the ceiling pretty quickly. And when you hit that ceiling, job hopping doesn't necessarily work anymore. And in fact, if you've done too much job hopping, it could start to become a liability on your resume where these managers will look at it and say, well, you have all these short term assignments, but I don't see any promotional upward trajectory for you. And I have heard hiring managers use that as a reason why they don't take a candidate seriously or they reject them, even if they like their experience. So, what he does give as advice, I think that there is some disconnect between, what's going on in reality today. People are hungry for jobs. You can't really turn down jobs just for the heck of it or just because you want to work with certain people. But there is some good advice buried in the layer. Obviously, the guy's a billionaire. He knows what he's talking about. He's clearly had a track record of success. So we should listen to people who are successful. But you want to make sure that you are doing or managing your career in a very calculated, intentional way. If you're just operating kind of willy-nilly, you're taking whatever job comes your way, you're hopping over here, you're hopping over there, it might feel good in the moment. And there probably is some validation because again, you're getting those big chunks of salary, but trust me when I say this, at some point you will come to find that that will hurt you if you're not doing it with a strategy. So I would just implore you, if you want to do the job hopping for the money, just make sure that you're doing it with intentionality and you know exactly what it is that you're doing. If you're winging this is a really dangerous game to play. And it's easy to say it when you're in your 20s. Oh, it's no big deal. You don't know what you're talking about. You're just you got an outdated mindset on this. It's the people who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s who find, and if you are in that age bracket, leave a comment. Let us know. Are you experiencing that same thing? Has that come back to hurt you? Or colleagues that you've seen, people who are struggling to get jobs because they're deemed to be more of a liability, that they're not dedicated, that they're not going to stick around, that there's a flight risk with the person, that they can't ever settle in anywhere, that certain companies just don't see them as a good long-term option. So there is a bias that does creep in. There's also Warren Buffett, who warns that you shouldn't worry too much about starting salaries and be very careful who you work for because you will be taking on the habits of people around you. And there are certain jobs that you probably shouldn't take. Now, the good thing about this article is they do call it, this is curious advice for a generation that's facing rampant inflation, a very soft job market, and ongoing, there's housing affordability issues. There's cars cost more than ever. People are struggling to put food on their table. It is a very difficult labor market to say, don't focus on starting salary. Maybe 5 or 6 years ago, this was more relevant advice. I think in today's market, you should be trying to get, your starting salary in a company will parlay you into that catapulting much quicker. So if you start at a higher rate, everything is higher. Your bonus potential, your 401k match, all of those things. So we should be focused on trying to get the best possible salary. I'm never going to sacrifice a lot of salary for the sake of the opportunity unless it is absolutely crucial for me in order to get to my career destination faster. But generally speaking, when people are starting out their career, they're looking for any particular job that they can get. Most people don't, especially today, don't have the luxury of being able to pick and choose and be selective. You have to get your foot in the door somewhere, and not choosing one job opportunity over another is probably pretty disconnected advice. Making this is kind of rich coming from a very rich person. Making money is not what life's all about. This guy's multi billionaire, and he says you got to get the experiences, you got to build the friendships, you got to try to try things, see what works, see what doesn't work. There is value in that. I'm not discounting what he's saying. However, it is it's rich coming from a very rich person to be able to sit up on a pedestal and be able to say, do this, don't do that, when they clearly didn't have the struggle that people are having today, trying to get started in careers that are basically going backward. All these people are looking at the wrong things. And ultimately, what Buffett is saying is it's better to hang out with people better than you and get into the right organization with people who elevate you than it is to go chase after the bucks and not be around people who can propel your career forward. And there's truth to that too. You are who you hang out with. And if you're hanging out with the slackers in your organization, the people who are always complaining about things, the people who are always taking the easy way out, the people who aren't like going anywhere, you're going to be lumped in with that. The senior leadership team takes notice of that. They see who's hanging out with who's in the certain groups. And then you see the people who are in the right place at the right time. There's a degree of corporate politics here, guys, whether we like it or we don't. If you care about your career, some people don't care about a career. They just want to work a job and they want to go home, and that's completely fine. But this is advice catered to people who actually want to head somewhere in their career. There is a game that you have to play, a bit of a corporate politics, like it or you don't. It exists. To say that it shouldn't exist, we can all agree to that. But the fact of the matter is it does exist, and you have to be able to, or willing to play it, and you have to learn the rules of the game. And it is something that when you look at the people in your organization who are moving up, chances are they're in these leadership development groups. They are getting involved with senior leaders on projects or very visible things. They're making themselves known. They have an internal brand that is pretty well known in their organization. Senior leadership knows who they are. If you're somebody that's invisible, that just sits in the back of the break room or the back of the town hall, never raises your hand, never speaks up, never gets involved in anything, you can't be disappointed when you get passed by for promotion. If you're not bringing anything to the table, just simply being good at your job just gets you more work. It doesn't get you moved up in organizations. So what they're saying is relevant advice. However, we have to take the context of where we are in the current job market. I don't think people can be too particular and selective, and especially when people can't put food on their table. Choosing the higher salary offer is probably going to be a pretty tempting one. It's not just those two. Also, another pretty wealthy guy here. I'm assuming he's pretty wealthy, but Simon Sinek says not to worry about salaries during a job interview. Instead, choosing the right job based on who you're going to work for. So kind of the same level of advice. There is, again, some truth to this. However, we should be worried about salary when we're sitting in a job interview. That's the main reason why we're there, to earn a living so that we can provide for our families. And to say not to worry about salaries and completely put them to the side and only worry about who you're working for, there needs to be a balance. You can't have one so far below another offer, but it has really great people. They really need to be kind of closer. Now, all things being equal, if one job maybe pays slightly more than another, but I'm working with much more a reputable company with a more well-known or well-respected brand in the market, and maybe the people I'll be working with will get me exposed to certain skills or experiences or opportunities that are better, then yeah, I'm probably going to choose that job over the higher paying job. But if it's too big of a disconnect, it's just not realistic advice. Then you've got the VC, venture capitalist CEOs that are, which I kind of look at these guys as they buy up companies and then they basically ruin it for everybody. There's so many examples of when a company gets acquired by VC and suddenly everything gets monetized. Like things that used to be free suddenly cost you something. you usually lose quality of service, prices go up, and eventually the company loses its soul and basically gets run into the ground, because that's what these guys do. They buy these companies up, they prepare them, and then they flip them and make a profit. So they have these like formulas that they run, and it's really interesting that this CEO, I mean, it's ironic, but it tracks for the venture capitalist CEO to say that the typical American plan to study for 22 years and then work for 40 is broken thanks to AI and other things like these constant layoffs. Whose fault is that? It's probably venture capitalists pushing these AI tools. Most of these tools that you see coming out are VC backed. They don't start as a couple guys in their shed working. They start as an idea that gets picked up by VC, who then pushes it. And then on the other side, these companies are who they're also working with. They're bringing that technology into these companies. And what's the main source of cost for a company? Salaries. People call off, people get sick, people need to be trained, people complain, people need raises, people need the higher salaries, people leave your organization and take all their knowledge with them. But guess what doesn't do that? AI models. AI models are quicker and cheaper to train than a human being. They're not perfect, but they're quicker and easier to train, and they don't complain. They work 24 hours a day. They can produce a lot more work, especially at the entry level. Jobs that are very easy to replace, technical roles, data-driven things where AI can come in and just kind of run calculations and do the data and do the analyses and that sort of thing. So you got to double down on skills that make you very marketable. And I think that's one of the things that this guy is saying. He's saying you're going to have to adjust, because this idea that we spend 22 years learning, so that's like primary school, like high school, all the way through college, and then 40 years working, it is becoming a much more difficult thing. This is when I say becoming the CEO of your career. This is what I'm talking about. You have to get away from this model and protect yourself, because that's where this thing is going. We are starting to see a major shift in how we even define what careers look like. And AI is going to play a big part in it. And we're just getting started with this. This is just in its infancy. And even though there is an AI bubble that is happening, it's not going away. They're just going to, the crappy ones are going to fall away. And then the best ones are going to take hold and really run with it. It's just, this is the same thing that happened in the dot-com bubble. All these fly-by-night .com companies came roaring onto the scene. And when there was the bubble that burst in the early 2000s, that's exactly what happened. A bunch of these companies ended up disappearing, and companies like eBay, Amazon, Google were the ones that came out of that. They started late, kind of grew out of that, and they're the ones that survived. And obviously look at where they are now. It's the same thing with AI. This is going to be exactly what is happening. It probably won't be ChatGPT. They're losing money hand over fist. But the fact of the matter is that companies are throwing cash at it. VCs are throwing cash at it, because there's a lot of, they look at the innovation and the cost savings. That's what they're looking at, cost savings. They can get most of a person's job replaced. Maybe not all of it, but most of it. They're 99 out of 100 CEOs is going to sign up for that, because they have to go to their board of directors every year and they have to justify, board of directors want those bonus paid out. So the shareholders want their dividends paid out, their increased value. Otherwise, the CEO loses a job. Granted, they have a nice golden parachute that you and I don't have, but nonetheless, they lose their job too. But that's what they are dealing with. So what he is saying is you're going to have to show drive, passion, basically be a go-getter, and dive headfirst into AI. Don't shy away from it. We'll probably talk more about that on this channel, how to future-proof yourself. But the people who embrace the AI and the people who embrace change are going to be the ones who succeed. There's going to be a separation of people who are, I probably call them average. The average population is likely going to be left behind if they don't start making purposeful decisions. You have to redefine what careers look like. You have to put the old idea of careers behind you, because it doesn't exist anymore. We have to change how we approach things. And this is going to be one of the biggest changes, is this AI and how we adjust to it. I don't think it's gloom and doom. The world, the chicken little, the sky is falling here. I just think it's a very big evolution. One of the biggest evolutions we probably as humanity have experienced. This is right on line with the Industrial Revolution. What's going on with this AI stuff. And it doesn't have to be scary, but it does require you to pivot. That's the name of the game here. If you're just going to try to do the same thing you've always done, and the whole market has changed, like the future is now, then you're going to be left behind. And people like these CEOs, these guys are not slowing down one bit with it. If you think that they're going to suddenly go, you know what, there's a bubble, let's just pull the brakes on this, we're not going to worry about AI anymore. It's like the genie's already out of the bottle. They'll iterate on it. They'll figure things out. They'll make things better over time. If you look at video generation, AI video generation, it's getting really scary, guys. It's getting really scary to the point where I don't even know what's real content and what isn't anymore. And it seems like every month, this service leapfrogs this service, then this service leapfrogs that service the next month, and they just keep on iterating. And it's getting to the point where things are evolving so quickly that if you don't think it's ready for your job today, it's going to be ready for your job tomorrow. It's just a matter of time, my job included. So we have to pivot. And these guys, like these CEOs, listen to what they're saying, because they're telling you what is happening. Unfortunately, us normies do not move the market. I can sit here and preach till I'm blue in the face that we should redo hiring, and that hiring managers should be doing all the right things, and CEOs shouldn't be laying people off anymore. But you know what that does? Nothing. Doesn't do any good at all. The only people who can change are you. That's it. You can change how you operate and behave. I talk a lot about becoming the CEO of your career. It doesn't mean that you become a business owner. That is a possibility, but it doesn't mean that. What it means is that you start to take back control of your career, because most people have no control over their career. They are completely beholden to an employer. If you're somebody that is struggling in a job search, and you're somebody that is always feeling like you're getting screwed over, you can't get the phone to ring, you get laid off, you can't seem to get the promotions, you are beholden to the employer. That's a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people. I fully understand that. You have to start reclaiming control in your career. And there is a very specific process that I've come up with. I'm not the only, mine's not the only way. There's a lot of ways that you can do it. I just have figured out a very repeatable pattern. I've noticed some very interesting things after talking to thousands of people. I've created a free webinar which walks people through that. If you want to check that out, it's free. It's on my website, lifeafterlayoff.com. Go and check it out. It'll at least show you the kind of like the high level roadmap. And of course, if you want to go deeper into that, there's options there for that and like how to actually do it. But become the CEO of your career. That's the answer here. The answer is not throwing in the towel. Like, how are you going to pay your bills? How are you going to keep a roof above your head? Are you cool with being homeless? You're going to wait around for universal basic income to come around. You're going to wait for somebody to come and save you. Ultimately, at the end of the day, you got to save yourself. That's where we are. I'm not waiting for somebody else to come and save me. I'm taking ownership in my own situation. But it requires you to actually have to do something. And that's the uncomfortable part for a lot of people. Most people just like to sit around complaining about things. They like to shoot the messenger. They like to bitch and moan about everything. It's funny. I was kind of thinking about that. I actually put a Twitter post up about this recently. People complain about the job search, but then they also complain about having a job. And then they complain about everything in careers, everything related to it. Just go look at the comment section on any one of the videos that I make. It's littered with people complaining, bitching and moaning. Some level, I get it. I get the frustration. Some of it is valid stuff. I agree with it too. But at the end of the day, does that serve you? Does being overly negative and jaded serve you in your career? Does being cynical serve you? Does it propel you forward? Is it helping put food on the table? Is it helping you build a career? Careers are still in existence. They're still going to be in existence. It's just going to be much more calculated and strategic. The people who actually succeed, there's still going to be jobs, guys. Jobs aren't going away. It's just going to be more, they're shifting. Things are going to be different. The people who have it the toughest right now are entry level. There is a war on entry level jobs. AI for sure is coming in and really, it's making things much more difficult. In fact, I think I've got one more. Yeah, got one more slide here. College grads are facing one of the most difficult job markets in at least in a decade, but it's probably moving towards ever. These guys have got to figure out something. But there's no other choice. We have to figure it out. We have to adapt. If you're struggling with this, you have to look inside yourself and say, what can I do to change or to adjust or to put strategy in place so that I can start doing the alternative is that you're homeless and woe is me. Nobody's coming to save you when you're homeless. The only person that can save you is you. At the end of the day, that's the only person that's coming to save you. So I'm going to be here preaching till I'm blue in the face about this stuff. I'm going to continue to share tips, tricks, how to get hired. You have to do the work and you have to have the right mindset and you have to adjust. I can't do that for you. Anyway, I know this video is getting a little bit long, but I wanted to just kind of put my 2 cents on what's going on in the job market. And if you need any help with yours or you want to learn how to navigate what's coming our way, check out my website, lifeafterlayoff.com. I appreciate you watching and we will see you on the next one.